Hi everyone and welcome. You're here today with Andy Valkyrie Divine, and we're continuing our journey through the chakra series. And so yesterday we started with the Heart Chakra, and so we decided to dive heart deep into it and discuss some of its foundations, what this chakra is all about. And today we're actually going to be discussing what does this chakra look like when it's out of balance. So, if we're on the deficient side of things, how does the deficiency manifest? And if we're on the excessive side of things, how does the excess manifest? So I'll begin by just reintroducing some of the concepts that we talked about yesterday. And so we talked about how when this chakra is balanced, we tend to see, a healthy feeling of balance, of equilibrium, and there's a lot of love, a lot of compassion, warmth, peace, all of these positive attributes that this chakra radiates outwards when it is balanced. There's also that sense of expansiveness because we're talking about love, and there's also a very good connection with others. So we're talking about in terms of interpersonal relationships, we're talking about friendships. So the dynamic of relationships is very positive. And when we're thinking about what happens when the center is deficient or excessive, we need to start looking at these different attributes and seeing how would they manifest themselves in either scenario. So I'll start with the deficiency, and if we're thinking about it physically, typically what will happen is, there might be a feeling of pressure on the sternum a lot. So that's one way that the deficiency can manifest itself on the physical plane. There's also a feeling of, we were talking about air and how we constantly sort of, inhale and exhale, and that breath and air as the element of this chakra is very, very important. So because the heart chakra rules the lungs and the whole sort of respiratory system in that sense, what becomes important and what becomes apparent when we look at deficiencies is that people might experience breathing problems. They might have problems with their lungs. They might have issues with, just literally breathing is difficult, and that's that interplay, that balance between, as I was explaining yesterday, between the spiritual and the material world is not balanced enough. It's not reaching that point of equilibrium, and so having your existence at the center of your being is showing that when you're in the deficient side of the spectrum, that balance is not really being met, and it goes as far as to the most basic functions of breathing to show you that. Another thing that might happen is a lot of the times I see people that are hunched over, and having this physical manifestation of being hunched over, it looks as though you're covering your heart, right? So when you see people that are constantly like this and they're just kind of like trudging along, that's one, to protect their heart, so they're very closed off individuals. And and two, it's to show that their heart is not open. They're not out there. They're not proud. They're not happy. They're not in their center at all. They're probably not living their purpose. And so the way that they exhibit that to the real world is by carrying themselves with this kind of hunched over physicality, so to speak. And it's also related to depression. Typically people that are closed in on themselves and are shutting down their center, they're typically people that are depressed, that have a hard time with life, that have a hard time figuring out their purpose. They're lost, they're disoriented, they cannot listen to their heart, they don't know how to do that, or they've never been taught. And so these people tend to dip into depression a lot. They tend to show patterns of isolation. So what's happening is, they get depressed, they get isolated, they tend to withdraw from people a lot. Things like social interactions are really, really hard for them, so they tend to stay away from people. They don't like to be around people. It's hard to get close to people, and that whole idea of shutting themselves down and protecting themselves emotionally, and it's again a coping mechanism that they're exhibiting to protect their heart from whatever is out there that they cannot deal with. And Another thing that is very interesting is that when we fear personal or interpersonal relationships, what ends up happening is that you're not letting people in, right? And so that balance of love, of happiness, of gratitude, because gratitude comes from the heart. All of these emotions are being blocked, and they're blocked by fear and by pain. And a lot of the times when we when we experience our first experience or our second experience of allowing someone to come in, and we get hurt as a result, like think of it as like a relationship or something like that, and you get really hurt, the grief and the pain that you experience can completely block off the center. And so what happens is, after a person has experienced this feeling of grief and pain, they shut down, and that's when you get to see this closing off of their center. They're having their walls out there. They don't want people to come in. They're scared that they're going to get hurt again, and they don't want that. So they try to protect themselves by just keeping away, staying isolated, not interacting with others, and so on and so forth. Another thing is that because of this, they mistrust other people, so there's a lot of mistrust of not being able to fully trust someone. Also feelings of being really judgmental, and sort of judging people before you really get to know them, and based on your previous experiences. Now, if we're thinking about people that have been hurt, that are dealing with a lot of grief, a lot of rejection, feelings of abandonment, because these are all experiences that get felt through the heart chakra, and they're some of the hardest emotions to deal with, really. It's they're crumbling experiences, and they really hurt, and it takes a lot of effort and a lot of work to heal those things, because you've left yourself vulnerable, you've gotten hurt. And it's hard to let other people in, because, again, you're trying to protect yourself. You're like, oh no, I got hurt before, I'm not going there again, right? So what ends up happening too is that over time, if this happens too many times, there's, through these experiences of like abandonment, rejection, neglect, there's an underlying feeling of low self-esteem that happens too. So that's another characteristic of a very deficient heart chakra. It's very low self-esteem. You don't have any confidence in who you are, in your purpose, in your center, and you feel that, well, I don't even deserve that. So there's also a feeling of I'm worthless. I don't deserve, I have no self-esteem, and I don't want to allow others to come in because I don't trust them. And so it further emphasizes that cycle of being lonely and isolated and lacking contact with others. And what happens is that when the heart chakra is closed down as a result of these experiences, these feelings that come up, etc., think of it as, at its very core, because the heart chakra is in the middle of the higher chakras and the lower chakras. At its very core, the chakra system is out of balance, and so past this point, if this point is shut down, there's not really much access into the higher realms, and so we tend to get stuck into the physical three chakras as a result, and so we tend to be very reactive. We tend to be very, longing for security, for things like that. But again, just going back down into the stream, and the energy is just not flowing well. So again, there's not really a good flow between, that upward stream and the downward stream. And one other thing to mention is that, as people, we cannot live our life in isolation. That's just not possible. We're not meant to be isolated. That's not our purpose. We need people, we need friends, we need relationships, and these connections are really what make us feel good, what make us feel grateful for what we have. And it's only through these interpersonal relationships, through these connections with our friends, our family, our partners, that we really understand what love is all about, because that's when we begin to love and feel loved in return. So that balance, that energetic balance that goes in and out, is where this happens. So through isolation, if we're not getting that, then there's a big problem. And so it's by this flow of loving and being loved that we're really practicing and exercising the very fundamental core belief of this chakra, which is all about love. Now, if we're talking about the excess side of things, what ends up happening is we end up being a little bit too giving. So we're too, we're over-sacrificing, giving too much of ourselves, putting others in front of us. So, it's always, I want to please others before I please myself. And you're too focused on others, and as a result, you tend to forget about your own center. And so you're kind of forgetting your own center at the expense of living through other people and trying to make them happy. And that's because we want to gain acceptance. And acceptance is another part of the heart chakra where, again, it's that balance point, which is the opposite of what we were talking about in the deficient spectrum, which has to do with, neglect and abandonment and so on and so forth. So acceptance would be the good side of that, and we want to be accepted because we want to feel loved, we want to feel welcomed, and we want to be able to share our love with the world. Now, gaining acceptance by pleasing others, not so much, because we end up in the spectrum of codependency. And codependency is that other side of excessiveness that we're dealing with here when we're too open and too excessive in our heart chakra. And what ends up happening there is again, you're longing for your sense of happiness, of love, of acceptance, but you're not really operating from your center as it is operating through other people by trying to please other people all the time. And so if you recognize yourself as a people pleaser, if you always try to make everyone happy and so on and so forth, it's really hard because you're always focused out there, looking for people, trying to please people, etc., etc., and you're not really focusing in here. And remember, yesterday we were talking about how the heart chakra is really that center where we want to be reflective on the inside, right? And so by always looking outside for that acceptance, we're avoiding looking on the inside to really allow self-love to come in and for us to feel accepted and worthy and loved by ourselves first without needing acceptance from others out there. And I think that's about it. The last thing I'd like to mention is that, again, at the excessive side, one can be very over-sacrificing, so you'll do anything for other people, but not really for yourself. So again, putting others first before you. And also you might get very jealous. There's a lot of personalities, especially because we're talking about the heart, where they get very jealous, they get very envious, very clingy, they try to hold on to people, demanding. So these are all expressions of the heart chakra when the heart chakra is at the excessive side of the spectrum. And I think that's it, guys. One thing I wanted to show you is the book that I was talking about yesterday. So this is the book. Sorry, I didn't have it right next to me there. So it's called Chakras, Energy Centers of Transformation. And it's by Harish Johari, and it's very much, it's very centered into like Hindu practices. Like there's a lot of sort of pictures like these, if you're interested in. So again, it's it talks more about the chakras, but from a not so much a Western point of view as it is more, like I said, sort of Hindu practices, where it originates from, which is in India. So. I just wanted to kind of give you an idea there, because I've had people ask me like, oh, do you know about yantras? Do you know about, a different view on chakras? And I mean, there's many different views on chakras. I'm just kind of trying to keep it very simple and concise and basic. But if you'd like to venture out there for something a little bit like really out there, this would be a book to go for. So I mentioned it yesterday, but I didn't have it available, so I wanted to show it to you today. And that's it for me, guys. Tomorrow we'll be talking about what are the things that you can do in order to balance the heart chakra. and I have some cards for you. We're going to do a beautiful heart meditation tomorrow as well. I'm really looking forward to that. So stay tuned, and I'll see you tomorrow. And again, please don't forget to subscribe to my blog and to my Facebook page if you're not already there. I'd much appreciate it. Thank you. Blessings.